Now, I've been getting a lot of questions lately. Should you get the MacBook Air 15-inch versus the Microsoft Surface Laptop 7 running the new Snapdragon X Elite processor? It's a Copilot Plus PC. It's got great battery life. It's got a really nice new design. It's also got some excellent performance, both single and multi-core, but so does the MacBook Air. So I figured going head-to-head would be the best way to solve the question. Hey everybody, it's Andrew, and this is the showdown between the M3 MacBook Air versus the Microsoft Surface Laptop 7. Is the MacBook? Let's find out. Now, pricing-wise, the MacBook Air, with its configuration that I reviewed, comes in at $1699, 8-core CPU, 10-core GPU, 16 gigabytes of unified memory, 512 gigabytes of non-upgradable SSD storage. And the Surface Laptop 7 with 16 gigabytes of RAM, 512 gigabytes of SSD storage, which, by the way, is upgradable, comes in actually $200 less at $1499.99. Now, I actually went for the one above that, or below, I should say, $1299.99, with only 256 gigs of SSD storage. And now you might be asking, why did I do that? Well, I found an SSD from Sabrent. It is the 2230 size, so it fits the Surface Laptop 7, and it did come in at $99.95, so that is a definite savings if I went the route from Microsoft. So I like saving money, and that was one way I decided to go. And it turns out I save about $300 going the way I did it, because 16 gigabytes 256 is $1299. If you want to go to the terabyte of storage, that's an extra $400 minus the $100 I paid to Amazon for the Sabrent drive. I actually saved $300, and to me, that is a win. And if you're in the market for any one of these units, I'll drop my links for my affiliate links, of course, in the description below. Anything that you buy through my links will certainly help support the channel, and I do appreciate that. Now, when it comes to the weight, the Surface Laptop 7 weighs in at 1.668 kilograms or 3.677 pounds. In contrast, the MacBook Air comes in at 1.505 kilograms or 3.318 pounds, which is slightly less than the Surface Laptop 7. Now, size-wise, the MacBook Air is thinner than the Surface Laptop 7. That's 11.5 millimeters thick, whereas the Surface Laptop 7 is 18.29 millimeters thick. So much thinner on the MacBook Air. And both have excellent build construction and design. The all-metal design here on the MacBook Air is simply the best out there in terms of the overall feel and look, as well as the Surface Laptop 7, also rivaling that of the MacBook Air in terms of build and design. And I don't think you can go wrong with either one of them in terms of the build. All right, let's talk about the displays, and we're going to start off with the MacBook Air. It has a 15.3-inch IPS display. It has a resolution of 2880 by 1864. Yes, that is a 16:10 aspect ratio with 224 pixels per inch. It's a very good display. It's IPS. It's not mini LED or OLED, so just get that out of your mind. You'll have to go to a MacBook Pro for the mini LED display, and obviously Apple does not offer an OLED display in their MacBook line, at least not yet. So this is what you're going to have to deal with, but it does have very good coverage of the color gamut. It's pretty color accurate, has good contrast. It has pretty good black levels for an IPS display, and it gets over 500 nits of screen brightness, so it's been pretty good. It's not overly glossy, not a lot of glare, so I would say it's a good display, but not a great display. There's nothing that really stands out about it, nothing that really pops like you'd get, say, on an OLED display. So that is where it stands in terms of the MacBook Air. Now, there is no option for a touch display. You'll have to go to an iPad if you want to have touch on the Apple ecosystem, so that's a big downer. And there's no option for a higher refresh rate. You're stuck with 60 hertz, so you're not going to get quite as smooth experience as you get on something like the Laptop 7, which I'll show you in a moment, or even its bigger sibling, the MacBook Pro, with its Liquid Retina display, but that, of course, does go up to 120 hertz. So not something you get here on the MacBook Air, which is a little bit disappointing, to be honest. And when it comes to the Surface Laptop 7, a 15-inch display, resolution is 2496 by 1664. That is 201 pixels per inch, but a different aspect ratio than the MacBook Air. This one has a 3:2 aspect ratio, a little bit taller, so if you're going to do productivity work, you'll see more on the display. You do less scrolling when it comes to web browsing. The downside is you'll see bigger black bars on the top and the bottom when consuming media that has been made for 16:9 consumption. Now, when it comes to the color gamut, it's pretty good. Color color accuracy, also pretty good. Again, this is not OLED like you can get on the Surface Pro 11, which is now an option. Unfortunately, there's no OLED option here for the Laptop 7. Maybe next year, that would be great. But good black levels, good contrast, good white point, no PWM or screen flickering has been detected here. That's the benefit of not going with OLED. And it's very bright. Now, I measured 561 nits, so this is going to be great for not only indoor but outdoor use. I didn't notice a lot of glare or reflection either. So overall, pretty good. Now, one area where this, I think, outshines the MacBook Air is the ability to use touch, pinch to zoom. Navigating the OS with your finger has been really convenient. I think it's a feature. It's high time it comes to the MacBook line. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Here, you can navigate with your finger with the OS and all that, and I think that's a big leg up in my opinion. Now, both have pretty thin bezels, even the MacBook Air, but there is one big eyesore. As you can see here, the notch, which is, of course, not pretty to look at. And I know people say you get used to it. I never do. It's there. And unfortunately, there's no function either. There's no IR camera there, no Face ID to log you in, no face recognition. That is a big downer in my opinion. And in contrast, they thinned out the bezels here on the Surface Laptop 7 over previous iterations, and there is no notch or anything like that. And they were able to put an IR 1080p webcam in that very small bezel on the top. Why can't Apple do the same? So this is the camera on the Surface Laptop 7, the 15-inch here, 1080p IR camera. That means you can log in with Windows Hello with face recognition, of course. So this is the FaceTime camera on the MacBook Air 15 with the M3 here for 2024, 1080p. What do you think about it? Let me know in the comment section below. There's no IR here. There's no face recognition or Face ID. Now, one area where the Surface Laptop 7 has a leg up over the MacBook Air is serviceability and upgradability. Yes, both units do have soldered RAM, so not upgradable in either one, which is not surprising here in 2024. But where the Surface Laptop 7 does have that advantage is upgradable SSD. Now, it is a small form factor SSD, the 2230, and I actually bought mine with 256 gigs with the idea of expanding it out myself, saving some money in the process, and I was able to find one from Sabrent, $99 over at Amazon, and I plan to upgrade from 256 to 1 terabyte. So that is a big advantage I think the Surface Laptop 7 has over the MacBook Air, where you have no upgradability whatsoever. And when it comes to the reads and writes, neither unit is going to blow you away in terms of the speeds of the reads and writes, but certainly fast enough what you need these laptops to do. And yet again, another area where the Surface Laptop 7 has an advantage over the MacBook Air is the wireless technology they're using. The Surface Laptop 7 is using Wi-Fi 7 and a Bluetooth 5.4 combo card that is soldered into the motherboard, not upgradable by the user, but the MacBook Air is using a little bit of a more dated technology here, Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.3. That's also soldered in, not upgradable by the user, and I think that it's a big disappointment here as well, because we like to see it a little bit more future-proof. That's what you get with the Wi-Fi 7 on the Surface Laptop 7. Now, when it comes to the ports, the Surface Laptop 7 has a headphone jack, a USB-A port, and 2 USB 4.0 ports that have Thunderbolt functionality. I was able to use my portable SSD drive from Sabrent. It's a Thunderbolt drive, and it worked perfectly fine. And on the right side is a microSD card reader and your Surface Connect port, which has a lot of the same characteristics of the MagSafe port that we're about to look at on the MacBook Air. Now, the port selection on the MacBook Air won't be quite as good. On the left side is your MagSafe connection, 2 USB Type-C Thunderbolt 4 ports that are full function, and you can connect 2 external monitors at the same time, something you couldn't do with the previous iteration. On the right side is your 3.5mm microphone headphone combo jack, and that's it as far as ports are concerned. Notably missing, no USB-A and no SD card reader, both of which are found on the Surface Laptop 7. Okay, let's talk performance, and when I ran the Geekbench 6 between these two, we're seeing better single-core performance on the MacBook Air running the M3, scoring 3144 versus 2833 on the Laptop 7. But where the Laptop 7 beats the MacBook Air is in multi-core performance, scoring 14,413 versus 11,936. Now, the integrated Adreno graphics are not quite as good as the solution employed by the M3 with its 10-core GPU, in the model that I reviewed. That scored 30,429 on the OpenCL test versus 20,031 by the Surface Laptop 7. So the Adreno graphics are not quite as good as the ones you find on the Apple MacBook Air. And when I ran the Cinebench 2024, both had very good single-core performance, but once again, the MacBook Air scored 141 versus the 123 on the Surface Laptop 7. But we're seeing much better multi-core performance once again by the Laptop 7, scoring 921 versus 612. So a big advantage there for the Surface Laptop 7 when it comes to multi-thread, multi-core performance. Now, both are pretty interesting when it comes to the thermals here. Now, the MacBook Air is passively cooled. There's no fan in there, so you won't have to contend with any fan noise, but it does get a little bit warmer under load than the Surface Laptop 7, which has one single fan in it. And of course, that is actively cooled. On the underside, getting a little bit warmer on the MacBook Air, as you can see here. So I think the fact that it does have a fan in terms of that Surface Laptop 7 does make it a little bit more comfortable to use on the lap. And speaking of the fan noise, under heavy load, the Laptop 7 never went above 36, maybe 37 decibels, which is not very noticeable, not too annoying. And when you're doing everyday tasks, doing normal things on it, like Microsoft Office, email, web browsing, the fan noise was not an issue at all. It stayed pretty quiet throughout. Now, when I ran the TimeSpy stress test to see if the Surface Laptop 7 will thermal throttle under heavy load, it got a passing score of 99.2%, meaning it detected virtually no thermal throttling under load. Now, contrast that with the MacBook Air, which is passively cooled. There's no fan in it. Of course, after doing about a 10-minute sustained workload, it will start to thermal throttle and will affect performance. So just keep that in mind. Now, one area where both really excel, and that is, of course, battery life. And the MacBook Air M3 has a slightly bigger battery, 66.5 watt-hours versus the Surface Laptop 7 with its 66 watt-hour battery, but pretty similar in the size nonetheless. And the MacBook Air lasted 18 hours and 33 minutes on the video playback, whereas the Laptop 7 lasted 22 hours and 21 minutes. And one thing that's a big difference, of course, is the Laptop 7 has 120 hertz high refresh rate, whereas the MacBook Air is limited to 60 hertz, which is a big downer. And considering I actually got better battery life with the 120 hertz enabled, means the Surface Laptop 7 will get even more battery life if you lower the refresh rate down to 60 hertz. What does that tell you? Well, both units are going to last you all day in real-world usage. There's no doubt about it. But the Surface Laptop 7 will outshine this. Can you believe it, in battery life over the MacBook Air? The winner here, obviously, is the Surface Laptop 7. All right, let's talk about the keyboards. And the Surface Laptop 7 has a really good keyboard when it comes to typing out long documents, emails, and the like. I like the tactility, the feedback, and the overall key travel. I felt it was really good. It has a multi-stage backlight, which allows you to get work done in a dark room or a dimly lit environment. That worked well. I never felt like my fingers were going to bottom out. So a very good keyboard on the Surface Laptop 7. Now, as far as the MacBook Air, I'm not a huge fan of the MacBook keyboards in general, but this keyboard actually worked okay. It was pretty comfortable for typing out documents as well. It has a nice multi-stage backlight on that as well. And I thought the overall experience was good, not great. I'm not the biggest fan as far as the accuracy. I didn't type as accurate as I'd like to, or as accurate as I was on the Surface Laptop 7 for whatever reason. Now, when it comes to the touchpads, we all know the MacBook Air has one of the best haptic touchpads in the business, and Apple has been really killing it over the years, being the king of the hill. Well, that may have changed here with the Surface Laptop 7 and the Stencil haptic touchpad that it employs. I found it was very responsive as well. Two-finger scrolling was excellent, and the overall feedback of the haptics were excellent as well. So whether one is better than the other, I don't know. I think the Surface Laptop 7 has closed the gap with the MacBook Air in terms of the haptics. I would say both are excellent when it comes to the haptic touchpads. Now, when it comes to audio, the sound is good on both. They're excellent on both, I should say. And on the Surface Laptop, they're calling it omnisonic speakers, where the sound is emanating from the keyboard and getting out from there. And there are no speaker grills or anything like that, giving it a very clean aesthetic. I think the overall sound is good. I think the MacBook Air may sound a little bit more full or richer, but I want you to be the judge. You let me know what you think in the comment section below. Now, let's give them a listen. Okay, let's give them a score. The MacBook Air, the 15-inch in 2024, running the M3, gets an overall score of 85. It's a very good laptop, especially if in the Apple ecosystem, you're going to love it. But I do prefer the Surface Laptop 7. As I pointed out, it does have some advantages over the MacBook Air. I'm going to give that an overall score of 94, making it the winner in the head-to-head with the MacBook Air. So please hit the like button, please subscribe, please share this video. Don't forget to leave a comment in that comment section below. Let me know how I'm doing. Let me know if there's a device or something out there you think I should review. I'll do my best to try to make that happen. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. And don't forget to check out my website, amdtechreviews.com. So until next time, this is Andrew. I'll see you in the next video.